Welcome everyone once again to another live stream of Working Class Australia and live number 39. Well, I'd just like to acknowledge the land of the Jar Jar Wurrung, where this is being broadcasted from. I'd also like to acknowledge the elders of the past, present and future, and also acknowledge the First Nations people of their struggle, which was a struggle against colonial invasion by a foreign power, but obviously is now it's now brought down to a much larger struggle against imperialism, part of our broader struggle against imperialism. And I always like to emphasise that black and white unite in a fight. I think we've got to narrow the target, broaden the base. And obviously, First Nations people are our natural ally in this big struggle against imperialism. Well, first of all, to all the viewers out there, obviously, some of those, especially for you guys overseas, what's been going on here in Australia, and notably in Melbourne for the last week in regards to Novak Djokovic, the Serbian tennis player. Obviously, he came over here for the Grand Slam in Melbourne. The situation was, I believe, the court upheld the decision and he's free to go. Obviously, we can stay. And obviously, there's the federal government's looking still at moves to deporting him. Now, there has been numerous rallies because he was actually locked away in a hotel room at the Park Hotel in Carlton, Melbourne there. And obviously you might have seen protests from all around from Melbourne just recently, and large rallies in the sense where it was broadcast around the world. Now, just to bring you up to speed what happened, he obviously applied to come in, and obviously there was someone approved and allowed him to come in for the Grand Slam. He wanted to be he wanted to reach the 21st. Well, he wanted to reach the most wins in the world title there in Melbourne. Obviously, he came in. There is a lot of apprehension why he should have been let in because it was believed he was vaccinated, and that's part of the requirement of coming into the country. And there was a lot of mixed feelings about it. A lot of people said, "Well, no, why should there be two rules? One for him and one for the rest of us. There should be one rule for all. That if you're required to come to this country, well, you'll have to be vaccinated. It shouldn't be just some of us. It should be all of us." Where the other argument was, well, he did apply and it was approved, and he provided all these exemptions, etc. Well, obviously it's obviously at the moment turned into complete schmozzle as well at the same time. Now, the rallies themselves were obviously no doubt for elements in the Serbian community supporting him. Now, I had mixed feelings about it. I'll take that back. I had very strong feelings about things. I said, well, why is it allowed that a wealthy superstar is allowed to come in and basically do whatever they like, willy-nilly, but when it comes to generally common people coming in, they have to comply to laws. I mean, you can't have your cake and eat it too in this sense. And also, too, this was not about him personally. This was all about generating money and more surplus value. I mean, the Grand Slam or tennis, whatever. I'm not a big fan of the tennis. I won't give my opinion at the moment what I think of it, but I'm not a very big fan of it. But why is it all going in? And it was all about money in the first place. And I believe he actually had selfish motives as well, that he wanted to be the number one in the world and not realise and screw the rest of everyone regardless of what your law is, etc. Now, those of us that took that particular position, a lot of us were accusing, you're deciding with the federal government and its agenda. Wrong. Well, we weren't at all. What we were saying once again was, why should be one set of rules for us and another set of rules for someone that's wealthy, regardless if they're a superstar, a rock star, or a movie star, or God knows what else out there. It's completely not right at all. And while all that focus has been on him, very little has been focused on all these refugees that are locked up in the same hotel for the last 9 years. That's right, 9 years. They haven't been locked up because of COVID. They've been there for 9 years because basically government policy is basically in regards to refugees to lock them up as much as possible and slow their process down and hopefully have them deported. Now, by rights, they should have been released years ago. They've been proven beyond that they're okay to come out in the community. They were, especially in regional areas, where they'll be probably required to work anyway and work and live, and usually they stay here. Where I live in regional Victoria, there are there's many migrant people here, especially people who are refugees, but they've settled here, they love it, they're not intending to move anywhere else. So, and they're making a great they're making a great contribution as well. So it just shows you the unfairness of a wealthy superstar, sports star, allowed to go through all this process. And I mean, it was quite comical when you think about it. I mean, they had a Zoom conference for a court case yesterday, and on top of that, that got crashed because everyone was jumping on it, from trolls to supporters, making comments and that, and the judge had to shut it down. On top of that, someone sabotaged the Zoom meeting, and thrown hardcore porn on there. So it basically, if it couldn't get any dumber, I'll just rephrase that. Generally, it couldn't get any dumber, but at the same time, it did. And I just think it was just a sham, it's a schmozzle, it was a joke. And you're right, quite right. Luke, it was just pomp for the elites, and one set of rules for them and another for us. And quite frankly, it's all this focus has been put in there. All these people turned up outside where he was locked up in this hotel room, Park Hotel there in Carlton. But then you won't see any of them any other time of the day of the year or day of the week. They're protesting that the refugees are still locked up there, been there for 9 years. So just shows you some of the double standards. So sorry, I know there's some people out there who watch this, or I know they probably have a different view. But sorry, no, it doesn't weigh doesn't weigh with me very well at all. And I think that just shows you the hypocrisy of the whole thing. The media focuses all their attention on what happens to the wealthy and all these superstars, etc. But never once, very rarely, they actually focus on what's going on with people like refugees locked up in the Carlton Hotel. Talk about double standard. And I think it's something we've always got to keep aware of what's actually happening on the ground as well. I mean, there was a rally yesterday. It turned into a whole ruckus. Police pepper sprayed people and all that. I'm not going to go on about police brutality at the moment and all that. I just think the whole thing is being poorly handled, and it was a mismanagement. And I'm just going to say to all those like supporting elites and that, well, screw you. You couldn't. I don't see you down there every other time they'd support the refugees. And actually, I just want to flows on here as well. I don't ever see them doing anything else, to be honest with you, besides turning up to something like that and big note themselves. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Just want to let know. I know it was on RT, and that, and some people thought, well, comical. Some it's not. I think it's just it was rather disgraceful as well. But going on about that, accusing us of siding with the federal government on this. No, we weren't siding with the federal government or any of the other major parties. The two cheeks of the same arse. We're basically putting that question, why is one set of rules for them and another set of rules for us? And I think that completely shows you the unfairness of the whole system. And it just shows you imperialism, which is what we live under, where profits are in command. Well, they definitely want to show that those who benefit from profits and that, they're usually the ones who get away with things scot-free pretty much. I'd like to see anyone else that's just a common person maybe trying to struggle to get back or coming into this country. And if they did the same thing, I can guarantee you now, they didn't have the money and they weren't a high-profile person, they'd be still locked up there in the Park Hotel. So just some food for thought on that. The other one actually regarding with COVID as well, as it continues on, how much it is a complete schmozzle that's turned out in this country. More cases every day, tens of thousands. And obviously the Gold Coast is the latest hit. And I think, but I'm not going to get into the anti-vax or pro-vax argument at all. I think now we're all dealing with this equally, one way or the other. And I think one thing it just comes to show you, once again, it's not just a matter about government incompetence. If they're dealing with such a pandemic like that, it shows you the system itself. We live in imperialism/capitalism. It's a system of profits in command. Its main objective is to maintain a rule, to rule profit, and to increase profit even further. Regarding the welfare and well-being of us, that is just a smokescreen. Really, it's not. I mean, there's actually now, I believe, in New South Wales, they're actually requiring people who actually have COVID to go back to work because there's a shortage of workers. Why? Well, a few things. They're either unemployed, they've left their jobs because they were such low-paying jobs, they don't want to go back there, or they're sick with COVID. And obviously, they're doing the right thing by the community and then class overall, and staying at home and getting better and hopefully recovering, and hopefully a speedy recovery too. I hope they don't suffer the worst aspects of this terrible virus, and then helping them out of it, move on. But no, what do they want? Want to require it? They want everyone back to work. The other thing as well, they're suffering as well, what people are suffering is a shortage of goods. Even when I go into a supermarket, how much less goods there are, and it looks like the major supermarket chains, Woolworths and Coles, but also the local independent ones like the IGAs, they will be requiring you can only limited buying of goods until such time because there is a shortage of them. Now, why? Well, let's look at it this way. It's not because nothing wasn't enough food or meat or products, etc., that was produced. We've got too much. It's been too much. We live under capitalism, imperialism. Profits are in command. People don't go hungry because there's not enough food, but it's because there's too much food. People go homeless not because there's not enough homes, there's too many homes. There's such a glut in the whole world market. And what's happening, this is around the world. This is not just Australia alone. And it just seemed to just drop out for a sec there. This is not just Australia alone. This is affecting us around the world. It's happening all around the world. Why? Because there's a crisis of capitalism, crisis of imperialism. There's a crisis of overproduction once again, where once again we have all these other things that are happening, playing in place like debt, and mortgage forecast, and that it's only because the further they've been eroding workers' wages around the world and reduce their ability to purchase what's produced. Also, we get an oversupply, or everything's overproduced, and they're unable to buy that back. And then, obviously, everything's glutted, and everything comes to a standstill. We actually could be coming into a worldwide depression here, which wouldn't surprise me at all personally, but it won't come to a lot of surprise to a lot of other people. And when they start blaming there's a shortage of truck drivers all of a sudden because a lot of them are sick. Well, that might be true in some aspect, but it's not the core reason why. It's just because basically the system itself has been in crisis. COVID did not cause a capitalist crisis. This has been going on, but this happened before COVID came along. COVID just fast-tracked it. That's it, and it's hit us like a ton of bricks. So this is what's exactly happening around the world. And what's happening here for Australia? Well, we've got, besides the shortage of goods, prices are going up. Inflation's going to be huge. So, and this year as well, and especially when I'm back to work next week, one of the big discussions is going to be obviously about pay increases. It's only basically the reason being is because people aren't able to afford to get by. They need to have significant pay increases to keep up and to stay that little bit ahead. This is going to be the battleground, and I'll guarantee you now there's going to be a lot more strikes, especially here in the state of Victoria, as time moves on throughout the year. We had some quite up to the last 6 months leading up to Christmas, but this is going to be increasing even more. And I think a lot of workers have had enough. They're sick and tired of low pay. They're sick and tired of having to tighten their belts and listen to every excuse under the sun that we get paid too much, we're too expensive, etc., etc. Well, now it's gloves are off. And I think game on. And also to relate this to what's been going on to the US with Striketober, it was actually that was being inspirational as well with the amount of the strike wave that's happening. And I believe it's still continuing. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone from the US, but I believe that's still continuing. And this is not just confined to these two countries. It's going to be happening a lot more around the world. Workers are going to have enough. They've had enough. We've been through enough lockdowns. We've been through enough shortage of things. We've got buy to buy. We're buy to buy what's required to us. We've stuck to the line. And basically behaved ourselves for the last 2 years, if you want to put it that way. We've done everything right, and now we're still becoming screwed. And I think one thing that's been the underlying thing for this whole factor is the attack on the working class and poor people. How to reduce rates, conditions, everything else, increasing the costs of living. Everything that's been going on is an attack on common working people, working families. Bills going up. I just actually received an email this morning that gas prices will be going up for the utilities, to the utility provider I use. And I mean, what more? I mean, how much more will be increased? Why are they doing it? They're trying to prop up ever decreasing profits. And this is actually I'll withdraw that. Right, I was about to go right off on a tangent there. But no, the reason why they're doing it, yes, they are there to increase decreasing profits. And what they're doing is, the first step they do is to attack the working class. So this is something that's happening around the world, and I think this gives us the opportunity now to really get to understand the system. Imperialism is not a government policy. I've heard the fancy words about this before. It's called globalisation. It's called late stage capitalism or some other trendy name that comes straight out of some shiny ass crom straight out of uni who doesn't like Marx but comes up with some creative name. No, it's what it is. It's imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. This is where it's at. It can't go any further now. It is decadent. It is decaying. It's moribund. It's monopolistic. This is what we're seeing happening in our eyes. It's been happening for a long time now. But now, what we're seeing is it can no longer, especially for those of us who live in the imperial bloc, such as for ourselves in Australia, we live in the US imperial bloc, our living standards are bit by bit, gradual, and it'll start moving in fast. It will go down further, and will be taken off us even further. I actually highly recommend reading this book. I'm currently actually having a read through this at the moment. It's Imperialism, the Evil Social Revolution of the Proletariat by Upal Bra from the Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninist. I would I strongly recommend that you actually go to their website, just Google their name, or just go type the communists. It'll take you there. And they actually have these books there for sale. Fantastic read. I was reading it for a little bit there, but that's how much I've read so far. I want to actually take some more study in that as well. But it gives you a more contemporary of what imperialism is. But there's obviously other references going back to Lenin's time of imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. And he wrote another later article on that back 5 years after he wrote the first one. But there's obviously a lot more onto it, and I highly recommend it. So it's not a government policy. It's not a decision by a group of people. This is what we live in. It's the export of debt and misery onto the rest of the world, basically what it is. Imperialism is not about throwing money at countries. Otherwise, you can class the Marshall Islands as imperialists. They send money. They send investments overseas. It doesn't mean that means they're imperialists. It means it's actually the export of debt, misery, and everything else that's onto common working people, both within the imperial core, but also into the rest of the developing world as well. So that's what we're seeing is, and further and further, all that wealth and all that money is being concentrated into fewer and fewer hands. And that is, well, we've heard the term the global elite, but that is Wall Street, the stock, Wall Street, and the boardrooms and the banks of London and New York, the banking corporations, the finance sector. And also too the boardrooms of Tokyo. So that's what we've seen here now, and that's what's been concentrated into further and further hands. It's something worthwhile to keep an eye on, and also remember this too for all the workers out there regarding about inflation and wages. Wages do not create inflation. No, they do not. Workers do not create inflation. In fact, workers haven't even created any of this mess at all. It's been the capitalists, the imperialists. Inflation is actually created by business, by the employers, by the finance sector, by the bosses. That's where that really stems from. And usually what you find the causes of inflation is nothing to do with pay increases at all. It's find other sectors where they need to increase as well. That, as I said, when it comes down to basic political economy, capitalist economy, we all know that basically where profit is realised is once a commodity is into circulation or sold. Well, obviously, the capitalist has to employ both labour and machinery to cover the costs, and he needs that extra to make and then digs into what will cost his labour, that extra to take profit out. And what he can sometimes do is increase the prices and obviously to try to extract a lot more profit from the products that are made. So it's just going to keep that in mind. The other thing it's also under this current crisis as well is the shortage of the rapid antigen tests. Now, in Australia here, we've been told by our federal government they're not going to supply them free at all to all citizens. This will be breathtaking. We'll actually hold your breath. This is what the Morrison government said. We'll only provide those if you actually have symptoms and you turn up to have a test at a testing centre. I mean, go and figure that one out yourself. How completely stupid. And guess what's where you have to buy them through? The likes of Harvey Norman, who's a parasite. And I'll just bring you up to speed all those who are overseas Harvey Norman. Well, Harvey Norman is a big chain store. It's usually white goods, but also electrical, etc., and furniture throughout Australia. He is typically very anti-union, anti-working class, What happened? He also lobbied the federal government not to provide these rapid antigen tests for free. He was one of the very many, along with Chemist Warehouse, funny enough, as well. So, what happens? So the federal government's turned around and says, "Oh no, you can buy them from Harvey Norman," which they're in short supply. So what they do, they increase the price up there further, price gouging. Now, this is what gets me. The ACCC stepped in. They said, "Well, if anyone's going to be price gouging, we'll name and shame them." Well, whoopee do. It's not even shaming it. If you're in a desperate situation, which something that should have cost you, say, for example, $15 or $20, and now you have to pay $50 for it, because you're in one hell of a deep shit situation, you need to get yourself tested as soon as possible. Well, you'd probably fork out if you can and get that $50 back, and it's happened, right? Whoopee do if they're going to name and shame. What are we going to do? Boycott? Actually, I would highly recommend that we just en masse and take some direct action into our own hands, and we'll just seize all those products in hand and distribute them immediately, especially those that are needed required first, but to everyone else. And put that out. But the ACCC, being part of the ACCC, is the Australian Consumer Commission, that goes along that line. So, let me close this. So, basically, whoopee-do about naming and shaming. If people are desperate, if they need something, they'll buy it. Also, too, you've got to understand, too, organised crime, they'll see an advantage to this. They'll buy things en masse and then sell them online for eBay, and that at a very highly inflated price as well. So what's the ACCC going to do? Talk about having a toothless tiger. They should have been actually going marching in and says, no, we're seizing this and shutting Harvey Norman down altogether, throwing him in court, book thrown at him, and him in jail for a very long time. No, but is that going to happen? No, it's not. In fact, they're just going to allow this to continue going. So, but it just, once again, it just shows you that we are in a system where profit's in command, where our needs are not a priority as well. Our concerns are not a priority. Our healthcare is not a priority when you think about it. But also, when you have a look at what's going on around the world, comparing to, say, for example, China and Cuba. Well, China, being a socialist system, Cuba, being a socialist system, is looking after its population. They have zero policies, zero COVID policy. And how they do it, yes, they do have lockdowns. But the thing is, if you're locked down, you're still looked after. Food's provided with you. Other essentials are provided. You have make sure you're kept on. You have registered nurses and doctors keeping an eye on you. So if you need healthcare, immediately if there's any other emergencies, that's all dealt with. There's really no need to worry at all. And the fact is, you don't need to worry about income because everything is sorted. You don't have to worry about debt because you're not paying any debt. Everything's put on hold there for the time being. So you actually are well looked after. And with their relations to about getting the vaccines, some people say they have a high vaccination rate. Why? Because they have trust within their own respective governments, but they have respect in socialism. And what we're seeing, what we're playing out in the world there, is the battle of the two systems between imperialism and socialism. Socialism, their populations have been looked after. Under imperialism / capitalism, well, we're just left for a free-for-all that our health is our own personal responsibility, and bad luck to the rest of everyone else that gets it. You're on your own, basically. And this just comes to show you, once again, the complete shambles how imperialism's handled this. And I'm glad, actually, this whole system has been exposed for what it is as well. What is now required is a lot of education, explaining to people, look, you cannot keep continuing this system. The system has passed its use-by date a long time ago, but now's the time to be organised so we can change our system, both the economic base and the superstructure of our society, to a socialist ones instead. Not where, under socialism, where all the major banks, industries, mines, etc., all come under public ownership under a common plan, and where we can organise production for the needs of the benefit of society, not the benefit of few. It's not about abolishing the wealthy. Nope. It's about actually taking production and then actually benefiting it for us, for the majority of the people, not for the majority, not for the very minority, the very few, the global elites, whatever you want to call them, finance sector, etc. And that's where we understand. See, under our system, we live under, whereas profit's in command, production, everything is geared to make for profit. Nothing's done without having to create profit. Food is not produced because we want it, because for our need. It's there to make profit. Houses are not built just for to houses, no, or to provide us with a home, no. It's there to make profit. Socialism different. So that's where, and so it shows you once again the superiority of the socialist system compared to capitalism, imperialism. So this is just some of the things we've got to keep an eye on at the time. But this was a great way to educate ourselves. Now, talking about education, by the end of this month, we will be resuming We Are the Builders Australia. We'll be starting off on a fresh study. We finished off studying this end of last year, Peru Libre. It was the party program of Peru Libre, and fantastic. I know it was ad hoc in translation where we read it, but please go back through the videos. You can certainly read through it. We had a great read and discussion through it. And well, also too, before then, when we started off, we kicked off with We Are City Builders study guide from the Centre of Political Innovation Educational Manual. That was fantastic, and we applied it to our conditions here in Australia. And obviously, there was a few questions there that didn't really apply to us at all. But however, we tackled through this, and it's actually quite a good read. So I highly recommend it. You can go to the Centre of Political Innovation website, cpeiusa.org, or obviously send Caleb Maupin an email on calebmaupin@gmail.com. I will add them further in the descriptions below later on if you would like to order any of these books. On top of that, I got asked a question the other day too about introductions to Marxism, Leninism, etc. And I'd actually like to recommend a few books to you. One of the best books I've ever read is this one, History of the Three Internationals by William Z. Foster. Just Google it online or order it through online. It's a fantastic read. It might look like a big book, but it's actually a brilliant read. It's one of these books you can be hooked onto, and it just comes to show you political economy, social science, and philosophy, dialectical and historical materialism all thrown in one, and it shows you how things have moved from lower to higher levels of struggle, and it's a fantastic read. It shows you matter in motion a whole lot, and this is a good introduction. So I'd say everyone have to read Capital One or some of the, and I'll still recommend the classics as well, from the Manifesto right through to Capital, and also various Lenin's works as well. But I would highly recommend it. It's a lot easier to read, so then you can actually help you develop further into it. The other one I like as well is this book, Why Communism by Moise Olgan. Fantastic little read. It's a great introduction for people as well. It's especially that one, The Malady, Onwards and Fruit of the Cure. Fantastic read. It's easier done. And also going back to what Caleb Maupin has said, I highly recommend this book, City Builders and Vandals in Our Age, which actually there's all the various articles and essays on socialism by Caleb. It's a great read, and it's a fantastic, and that's what we are. We are builders. We're not vandals. We're not wreckers. We're not out to destroy it. We seek to build and build a new way and a vision as well. It's a good read. The other ones he's actually wrote, this is still a high-selling book too, Breadtube Serves Imperialism, all about how, and it is true now, it does, Caleb actually has talked about this. He has got the documentation that Breadtube was set up by both MI5, MI6, and I believe the CIA as well. So obviously it does, and it's fantastic. I prefer to call it Breadtube, and why it really sucks still. But however, it's a fantastic book, and read that title. And last one too, it's along the lease. I did have a little read of this, and it was written by both Caleb and Keaton Mansell, and I think it's a fantastic little read. It's more or less little quotes out of the Bible, but also quotes from Martin Luther King and other revolutionary leaders as well. It's not to deal with idealism. It's not trying to convert you to Christianity or any other religions. Nothing to do with that. But what Caleb Keaton was actually trying to show, that the revolutionary role of the early Christians in the downfall of Rome, originally that was a revolutionary text for the then proletariat of the Roman Empire, and how it was written during that time when they were trying to overthrow slavery and Roman direct rule. And it's a fantastic little read as well. And so, look, for any of those out there, I won't name the YouTube political commentator analysis I won't mention his name, but he was definitely very, very incorrect when he said this is about leading people into idealism. Obviously, he needs to read this. He needs to read it thoroughly and completely understand it and understand where both Caleb and Keaton came from. So hopefully that was just some introductions to some good books there. But look, just going back onto the online study, I'll need to discuss with the other comrades what we'd like to, what we're looking to study next. Obviously, we want to include everyone here as well. And look, especially for the Australian viewers here, if you like to be involved in our online study, look, just shoot me a message. Even send me an email. My email is davidfx69@gmail.com. Send that through to me, and I'll certainly try to include you in. It'd be a pleasure to have you on and involved in online study as well. But look, comrades, I just want to make those comments today of what's going on. I'm going to try and do one more live before the week's out, or at least two. Next Sunday, once again, I'm live with Dust James. We're continuing on our study, continuing on with our study. Oh, the camera just moved. Oh, dear. Yeah. We're going to continue on with the study next week. That's 12 o'clock our time, Australian Eastern Daylight Time, 12 p.m. on this Sunday as well. So for Working Class Revolt, hopefully we'll see you all there. But as I said, if you ever want to come on as a guest, let us know as well, and we'll obviously fill you put you in a time slot there. That's pretty much concludes what we've got tonight. Oh, there is one more. For those comrades in Victoria, and especially in Melbourne, every Friday there is a vigil for Julian Assange outside Flinders Street Station, 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. on a Friday evening. I'll be back. I'll be down there myself. I was down there last Friday. Yes, there was torrential rain for a while, but it didn't stop us. There was a few of us, but we had some good positive support from everyone that we engaged and talked with as well. So, look, that still needs to be supported. Julian Assange is still locked up there in Belmarsh prison there in the UK, and I think it's imperative now that we in Australia, he is from here, he is an Australian citizen himself, and he has done a lot of great work in exposing imperialism, and I think it warrants it. It warrants our support. So there is a group that's got together. I'm not too sure. I believe there's one in Sydney as well, and they meet out at Town Hall there in Sydney, I believe at the same time on a Friday evening at 6 p.m. I haven't got the details there, but obviously check out there in your local capital cities, and I believe there are vigils in Brisbane and Adelaide. I'm not too sure about Hobart and Perth and Canberra, but if not, start one if you're in those capital cities as well. And if you're in regional towns as well, feel free to look up with 2 or 3 other people and have a vigil on a Friday afternoon. I'm looking to try and get this done in Bendigo. Looking to do in the same time. So it doesn't have to go all the way down to Melbourne, but it'd be good to spread the message around. And obviously that's there's a lot of support for Julian Assange in this country, but we need to keep the momentum up. We need to get the pressure happening, and we need to bring him home. We need to bring him back here. He should not have to be extradited to the US to face trumped-up charges on something he has never, ever done in his whole entire life. So that's something just to keep an eye on. So look, for those comrades in Melbourne, 6 p.m. this Friday outside Flinders Street Station in Melbourne there. I hope to see you there as well. Well, look, I'm going to end it there. Thank you for listening and thank you for watching. Sorry, I was a little bit ad hoc and over the place. I will eventually improve a lot more. But look, thank you once again. And as I said, if you ever want to be involved, let me know. Shoot me a message. And I'll end it off tonight as workers of all countries unite. Thank you, everyone.